Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you here today. Welcome to the North Park Civic Association Black History Tribute. We're going to continue to answer this question throughout the program. Where do we go from here? So the agenda for today, we're going to have a song, Lift Every Voice, that's going to be sung. And then we're going to go from there into our historic legacy of racism in Long Beach. We're going to talk about the purpose and structure of the North Park Civic Association. We're going to have a panel. We have a panel for you today, and then we're going to have open floor to everyone else. Please, as we're going through this presentation, keep your mic on mute and place any comments or questions throughout the presentation in the chat box. We have Miss Jarena Brown. She's a soul singer, and she is going to sing for us, Lift Every Voice.
Okay. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weariness, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in Thy path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places of God where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadow beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was beautiful. Wow. So if you need a singer or an event, if you need an event for a singer, please contact Miss Jarena Brown, and she'll be happy to talk to you about the event. Wow. Minister Miles?
Ms. Brown, put your contact information in the chat, please. And thank you again.
So we're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about the undertold story of Black American experience in Long Beach. Long Beach developed in the early 1900s. The need for domestic labor, construction, and day laborers rose as it began to increase. Because Long Beach was primarily a resort town, wealthy people were attracted to its shores. There was enough people to fill the blue collar, there wasn't enough people to fill out the low wage jobs. So this created a vacuum. So hence cheap labor was needed outside of Long Beach. Black Americans migrated from the South for new opportunities. And this is going to lead into the Great Migration. So we often talk about slavery, but slavery in many ways is still not over. Its systems still proceed. My great-great-grandfather was a slave. And many of the traces of its oppressive system still lingers in American society today. But in the early 1900s, as Long Beach developed, there was another movement going on, which was the Great Migration. This is where African Americans traveled from the South for justice and opportunity. The first and second wave came to Long Beach looking for a different experience that they experienced in the South. My great-grandfather, Napoleon McHenry, came here to Long Beach in 1955 from Virginia, looking for opportunities. At the time, the family tells me there were only 10 Black families. So the question is, so where do most Black people come from in Long Beach? We come predominantly from the South. So on a dream deferred, or is not getting the American dream. So what happens to a dream deferred? This is a poem by Langston Hughes. It explains the harsh realities of Black Americans having to hope and dream for a better life, but not necessarily getting that dream. The hope of escaping an oppressive South to a more noble North, but yet finding that once they reach that noble North, it's not as normal as they once thought. It's just as oppressive as the South. They face hardships, working conditions, curfews once they got here. The harsh realities that they will not be able to experience the American dream once people migrate from the South, but instead they're stuck still facing this American nightmare. So for some of us, what is sundown? For those that don't know, it was an unspoken rule at that time, which Blacks can move freely during the day. But once curfew hit, if you were found not out of Long Beach, you would reach cruel punishment. Even at times, they would even have lynchings because of this. So many Black people live on the outskirts of Long Beach, in towns such as Island Park. So once there was a situation of where Black people can live in Long Beach, there was then another policy put into effect. It was after World War II, maps were made not allowing Blacks to get mortgages or loans to create wealth in American society. And even though you would think that's enough to hold us back, they also created a policy called redlining. Redlining was the segregation of a community within a community. And in these specific communities, within the communities, they were not giving Blacks or people of color loans, again, to build their community. This happened throughout the country, and it happened in Long Beach. But sadly, even though it happened here, there's something that we can do about this. This is how the suburb was formed, and this is how it still is today. We can change it. So this is a quote that explains everything. It's by Jesse Wilson. He's the first Black person born in the hospital of Long Beach. And he just explains his condition. He explains his experience. He said, if you do not go along with what happened and the demands at the time within Long Beach, if you're a Black person, he said it was no different from the plantation. He said it was no different from the Jim Crow South. He says that oppression for people of color was not just a Southern thing, but it was also a Northern thing as well, experiencing the same system of racism right here in Long Beach. So a lot of this then leads to the next movement all across America. There's the civil rights movement, and Long Beach also experienced, the need for a civil rights movement. My great-grandfather, Napoleon McHenry, in this 1960, he was one of the board members of the MLK Center. He was also the vice president of the NAACP. And he was part of the committee that brought Dr. King here to Long Beach in 1968. Grandpa recalled marching through the streets of Long Beach with Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King in 1968 at the height of the civil rights movement. 2 weeks after he marched in Long Beach, he would be assassinated. But when he was here, whenever he was here, the media would follow him around, and they would want to take pictures of him in front of Christian Light Baptist Church, and he refused. He wanted to show that this resort town was not a resort town for everyone. He wanted to show that on the outskirts of the town, due to redlining, there was a community that their homes did not look like vacation homes. They were missing doors, they were missing windows. And he showed, he said, if you're going to show a picture of me throughout the country or even throughout this community, I want you to see what it really is. It is not a resort for all. So unfortunately, we're still marching today, even though Dr. King did that in the 1960s. We're marching today for the same reasons of inequality, disparities, and injustice. 80 years later, it is now my time, it is your time to protest, to march, to strategize, organize for a better Long Beach. Is it a critical time in our country to break down yet again barriers of oppression and the systems that be? So we have here A Dream Deferred, which again we know is by Langston Hughes. And Dr. King wrote his I Have a Dream famous speech based off that poem. And this is just a quote from it. It says, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin or by the content of their character, MLK, but by the content of the character. And so we're going to go to the next slide. And we know this summer that we saw many protests because of the murder of George Floyd, where a police officer kneeled on his neck. And some of us may say, why is this relevant to New York? And 6 years ago, there was an identical case with a young man named Eric Gardner, who experienced a situation where the police were choking him and said, I can't breathe. And then 6 years later, we have the murder of George Floyd. And unfortunately, after the death of George Floyd with the marching in Long Beach and the marching throughout the world, there still have been even police chokings in Long Beach. And still yet, there are situations that are happening where police are killing unarmed, innocent Black men. So what do we do? So the cycle will continue if we do not unify. Hence, the movement has not died because injustice has not died. Oppression has not died and inequality has not died, regardless of race or socioeconomics. So we got to continue to fight. So what is next? We need equity to be made visible all throughout Long Beach, from the west to the east coast. And to do so, it is time to plot, plan, organize, strategize. It's time for us to mobilize in an effective way for a better Long Beach, turning this movement into policy change in education, policy change in policing, policy change from the top to the bottom. So our mission statement as North Park Civic Association is to improve the political, education, social, economic quality of life for African Americans and other racial and ethnic minorities that are citizens and residents of North Park. That is our objective, that is our mission. Our officers at the moment for North Park Civic are, we have our president, Ronnie Miles, our first vice president, Anissa D. Moore, our second vice president, yours truly, Ronald McHenry, our secretary, Patricia Searcy, and our treasurer, Wanda L. Brooks. So let us introduce the panelists for tonight. They have impacted the community for years throughout civic engagement, not just them, but others. But tonight we have the select few on the panel. I, Ronald McHenry, will be your moderator. I'm the second vice president of North Park Civic Association. I am also an educator. Our panelists for today, we have Marcus Tinker. He's a committee member of North Park Civic Association. He's a deacon and activist. He's organized several times gun buybacks and job fairs. We have Ronnie Miles. He's the president of North Park Civic Association. He's an activist. He's an educator. He's a minister. He's the former NAACP president, and he ran for council a few years ago. And we have Anissa Moore, the vice president of the North Park Civic Association. She's a professor. She's an activist. She's the former city council member, and she's the first Black elected official in the history of Long Beach. So we're going to be answering this question for the panel: where do we go from here? For each question, the panel will discuss for 7 minutes. I'll put the timer on each bullet. We're going to start off with education. So panel, where do we go from here in concerns to education? The timer is set and go.
I'm going to start. First of all, the first thing we need to do is change, as you said, policy in education. So we got to start with hiring and curriculum. I think those are the two hot button points that we need to get to, because the curriculum is teaching us the same systemic oppression, the same white supremacy, the same policies. A lot of people want to ban books. A lot of people want to take down statues and rename schools, but all of that is very superficial. None of that frees us. None of that changes the situation for the children within the building. You can change the name of the building a million times, but if your curriculum does not change and your staff does not change, the impact is of null effect.
Thank you. Marcus Tinker and Anissa Moore. Where do we go from here as far as education? The timer is on. We have 6 minutes remaining.
Well, just to once again, just join in with what Brother Miles has said. Representation is linked to changing policy. And so it's at this point expedient for us to look at how can we begin to strategically have and gain representation on the school board? How can we begin to have more teachers in the classroom? Our children need to see people that look like themselves. How can we shift the curriculum? A curriculum that once again affirms Black childhood, that affirms brown childhood. We have to have that within the school system. We also have to look at the nature of education. Is it just for them to take tests, or is it for them to become educated citizens so that they can navigate the world? And by the time Long Beach students find their way to Nassau Community College, specifically Black and brown young men, we have the data, and the data says that 70% of all African American men who enter into Nassau Community College must move forward with remediation. And that remediation will take at least 2 years because they are not reading on college level. They are not proficient in math. And so the challenge is here, but I believe that we must continue to strategize to make that a reality.
Excellent, excellent. Uh, we have 4 minutes remaining on this question. I'm going to press for the next question. It says, where do we go from here concerning redlining?
Well, that's a that's a whole program in itself. What we must expose, right? So Ida B. Wells said that the only way to fight the injustice is to shine a light on the injustice. And so when we talk about redlining, we have to hold the real estate industry, the banking industry, we have to hold them accountable. We have the data and the history to prove that once again, our neighborhoods were deemed inadequate, they were deemed invaluable. And so the corporations decided not to invest in our communities. But obviously they had used the community before, right? Because once we come in, then all of a sudden it's not a good neighborhood. So therefore, those people who were in the neighborhood had to pay higher taxes, less representation. Their mortgages were higher. In many cases, people were denied access to mortgages. Um, they also found themselves predators in terms they were victims of predatory mortgages, right? So you're paying the highest interest rate. Therefore, within 2 to 3 years, a Black family, a family of color, tends to go into foreclosure because of it. And so we know that there were certain areas that were designed to keep us in those areas, to remove all the resources from the area, and then blame us and say, why can't you, why is your neighborhood the way that it is? Why are people in your area struggling, right? And I can speak to it specifically as a victim of it, living in Brooklyn, New York. I remember the day when they came and they cut all of the green trees off the street, right? Because that's a part of it. You remove the tree-lined street because that lowers the value of the property, right? So once I saw that they started planting trees in the city of Long Beach, and I saw the fact that now all of a sudden the streets are getting paved, that's letting you know that it's not for us any longer. They're going to shift it, and now this is going to become a desirable area.
So if there's anything that you would like to add, Brother Miles.
Well, I definitely have a lot to say about redlining, but most of it has been addressed by Professor Moore. It is a system. It's built to do what it does. Just like education is a system and it's built to do what it does. What we have to do, yes, Martin Luther King said, darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can drive out the darkness. So you do have to shine a light on all of it. But you also have to advocate for representation, for example, on school boards, representation in real estate. How many Black real estate workers are there in Long Beach? How many firms are Black owned? And so if you have people who are there watching for the injustice where the gatekeepers are, you can eliminate these practices, which are so intimidating to most of us don't have any knowledge about mortgages, brokerage fees, and how things actually work in the real estate realm. And so when we get there, we're just like lambs to the slaughter. We don't know what questions to ask, what we can. They will show, and there was a study here in Nassau County where they were showing white families with the same economic status, the same job title, houses, and they were also showing Black people, trying to show the Black families the same houses, but they would not allow the Black people in. They would say, oh, that house is already taken, or we have another area, and they would steer them to Roosevelt, or they would steer them to Uniondale, like they steered us to North Park. The reason we have a North Park Civic and the way that Long Beach is broken up today is because of redlining. And when you start moving into other neighborhoods is when you get people burning your house down, as they did down there in Point Lookout. When we lived in Point Lookout, they burnt our buildings and our houses down, and we had to move out. Even now, as they're going through the neighborhood, deciding where they want to buy up land, we're going to get to that next, but they're giving vouchers to the people saying, you can go here. You're steering us to Hempstead. They're steering us to Far Rockaway. Why can't we be shown a house that's in our bracket and our income bracket right here where we live?
Awesome. We're going to move on to the next question because of time. And the next question is, where do we go from here? We talked about the redlining, but now where do we go from here as far as affordable housing? We see a lot of things going on. We see them pushing us out. We see us moving. Where do we go from here as far as affordable housing?
Well, affordable to whom is the question, right? We have this thing called a median area income, which really takes up everybody's salary within the city or town that you might live in. And then it takes an aggregate average of those salaries and says that's what's affordable. But if we're making half of what our white counterparts are making, if
I think Long Beach is like,
$8,000 is the median income for Long Beach, and we on average have a $40,000 or $38,000 income, how can we get affordability here? So there are several things that I feel that you need to do. Inclusionary zoning as a law, so policy. You got to go to city council. We need representation on the city council who's going to be advocating for the people who are impoverished, not just Black, but impoverished. There are two impoverished areas of Long Beach. That is the West End, which is also turning and changing as we speak, and North Park. And so when you ask the question, you have to now implement policy and strategy to maintain that people who have built into this system, paid into this system, into this city, pay their taxes and help develop this town, can still stay here and it be affordable to them. Our seniors are at an inordinate amount in Long Beach, and we have to address the fact that we have more seniors than we have young people. I mean, this is affordability at the crux of this crisis with this pandemic and all of the other things going on. These issues must be addressed for all of us to be able to have a place to live.
To piggyback off what Ronnie said, affordability needs to be defined. What is affordable? What's affordable for a one bedroom? What's affordable for a 2 or 3 or 4? What is actually affordable for the average individual in this community? That needs to be defined.
Absolutely, and I would only just
until it's defined, you can't really move forward until that's defined, because that gives you numbers to work with.
Yeah, I would just also add that it's important that we hold our elected officials accountable, right? Because that was a part of a conversation before we left office. We were trying to partner with the community along with the municipality to determine those numbers. The municipality can determine those numbers. You can work with zoning. You can work with your planning board to make this happen if you really want it. You have to be intentional about it.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next topic. And thank you very much for answering that question from where do we go from here concerning housing. The next question is, where do we go from here as far as gentrification, as far as the comprehensive plan? So I'm going to put 7 minutes on the clock and you guys can go.
Well, when you look at the history, we understand that this has been going on in several different instances. But however, we can say this, we can say that, in 2018, we took a stand as a community. We rallied and we moved forward with tabling the comprehensive plan. The only problem is now where we are in terms of the real estate market is booming, and it's been booming since last year. And so those developers, as well as the city of Long Beach, have taken advantage of that. And we also know that's coupled with Governor Cuomo's moving forward with the actual opportunity zone, right? So the opportunity zone gave tax benefits to those developers, those corporations, those investors, right? So all these other people are investing in the community without having conversations with the community, right? And so what we have to do, and that's something that we decided to do, was form a corporation as a way of saying that we're resisting the present gentrification. And so it's up to us as a community to continue to work together to rebuild our community by buying these houses and putting our people back in. That is the only way to really stop this, outside of having conversations with the developers. I've had the opportunity in working with some people in Detroit, Michigan. That's what they're doing in Detroit, Michigan. They're partnering with their local churches. They're working with community organizations. They're taking the money, they're renovating the homes, and they're putting the members of the community back into those properties. So we have to be active, and we have to really be intentional about this work.
I guess the two key words here are intentionality, and accountability. So if you're intentional and you really have intent to do such a thing, that's what will happen. You will carry out that. So we have to be hold all of our council people accountable. We've got to hold our zoning accountable. You got to remember though, there's a crux in the game here. So the council appoints our housing
That's
director,
right.
right? The council appoints our zoning board. The council appoints, because see, in order to have stability here, you have to have economic access, right? There are no Black-owned banks and there are no Black leaders in banks that I know of anywhere in Long Beach. So all of these things need to take place. So if you don't have that, then you got to go to the community level, right? So as you're looking across, the civil service is appointed by your council or your city manager. Everything is now strategically put in place where only certain people are making decisions for the whole. And I don't think most of this island actually knows that these people are in place making these decisions for them. If they did, they would be at more meetings, they would be more aware, there would be more complaints. But we do have to hold every part that's connected accountable. I think that's just it.
I just want to thank all the panelists for these discussion topics and giving us direction tonight on where we go from here. At this moment, I'm going to open the floor to other people on the call. If there's any remarks or any questions, please come forward. I'm going to set the timer and check the chat.
I want to drop an extra topic in there if we can for the public to join in and speak about. As you mentioned in our introduction, we had several, I guess, protests concerning the death of George Floyd and his murder, and also right now they're choosing a jury. Do we all know how juries are chosen? Do we all, you have to be a registered voter in order to be on a jury. And so many of us say, it doesn't matter if we vote, it doesn't matter if we're registered to vote, it doesn't matter what party we're allowed to register to vote to, and none of that matters. But as we see what's panning out, the first person they've allowed on the jury is a person who said, I want to congratulate the Minneapolis Police Department. I think that it's a job well done. Right? That's the first person. So prepare yourselves for this rocky roller coaster ride and lower your expectations for justice. My question is, how are we going to deal with policing of Black and brown people in the Long Beach community? How do we go forward? Where do we go from here with policing in Long Beach?
It needs to be open dialogue, needs to be real dialogue, it has to be real talk. Like everybody has to keep it 100. Community and the police have to keep it 100. Can't beat around the bush with the issues. People need to say how they really feel about how they might have been treated in the past, how they've observed other people being treated in the past, if they have seen best practices other places that could work here. I mean, they can't say, okay, oh, that worked here, it won't work here. They won't know unless they try.
There needs to be programs where the police can come into the community and build relationships with people in the North Park, so that there isn't this situation of unfamiliarity, right? We are residents here. Also, they need to pick policemen, I feel, and I don't know why. I feel like most of these police officers are from the outside of the community. I know that we have 2 Black police officers, but I've never seen them. So the relationships need to be built. I feel like once relationships are better, there will be better conversations. And hopefully we can get there sooner than later, especially with the state having all of these regulations.
I totally agree with you, Brother McHenry. But again, I think we're really at that point where this is a serious challenge for us in terms of Long Beach, because we made every attempt that we could to partner with the police. And many of you who are on this call will remember that we even moved forward in 2016 with a conversation which was held at the MLK Center, where we, for the most part, and there were some of you served as panelists, we shared with the community as well as with the police department that our community wanted to have a stronger relationship with the members of the Long Beach Police Department. And several members of the police department openly admitted that they did not know the members of the community. And the commissioner at that time, right, there was a lot of conversation about how we could move forward at that time. Again, several of you who are on this call, we moved forward with the actual neighborhood walks. That was the reason why we continue the neighborhood walks, because we wanted to show that we're out here. We wanted to police our own communities with the hopes that we could partner with the police. And several police officers did join us on the walk. And then unfortunately at that particular time, they were asked to not walk with us. So we have a new commissioner. The door is open, but we need to have that conversation sooner rather than later, because this is, regardless of what anybody's saying, this is a different Long Beach. This is a different season in the history of our city, and we need to have those conversations now. And those conversations need to just not be with heads of organizations. It needs to be with the everyday people that live here.
So just due to time, as the moderator, we have about 5 more minutes remaining. If there's anyone else that would like to chime in on some of the discussions that we had, now is the time. If not, if no one has anything to say, I just want to say thank you so much for participating, for joining us on this evening in regards to Black history in Long Beach, in regards to our legacy and where do we go from here. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a blessed night.
Hi, wait, before you go.
Oh, okay, Ms. Rustin, I'm sorry.
I apologize for being late. For some reason, I had it in my book at 6:30. I don't know how many people you have aren't in your meeting.
It's fine. You have about 4 minutes, so if you have a question, please.
I just wanted to thank everyone and let everyone know that tomorrow, Wednesday night, is actually the meeting. I put it in the chat to adopt the new police draft for the police reform for the governor. So if there are any concerns, please read it. It's not as lengthy as the other municipalities. And if you have any questions, to please email me, and my number, I'm pretty much always available. And again, my deepest, I'm really sorry I was late.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for the information. Again, we'll look into the document. So I'm going to say that seems like a wrap. I'm going to stop the timer. And everyone, please have a blessed evening.